We begin with this story now. A driver of a Kia saloon vehicle has shot himself in the head after shooting a pedestrian who confronted him over careless driving at AHEAD near KNUST. The victim, Amwa, who is a painter, was shot 3 times in the stomach after returning a slap from the Kia saloon car driver. The driver, according to the eyewitnesses, was quarreling with another woman who was also driving. He later shot himself after he was surrounded by the police, who had rushed to the scene to prevent a mob action. Amwa had moved in to tell the driver to drive cautiously on the busy road when he was caught up in traffic. The two are in critical condition and have been sent to the KNUST hospital.
This is the main AHEAD to KNUST campus stretch here in KUMASI, and where I stand presently is few meters away from one of the KNUST exits. They call it the Agrek Gate. And at this point this morning, a driver of a Kia saloon vehicle shot one man for telling him to drive cautiously on the road.
I was just standing with Mr. Amwa. I was discussing some issue with him. So when I saw a guy driving very careless on the road, so we just approached the guy and says, Amwa says, please drive very carefully, because this place is just a busy road. You can cause an easy accident. So the guy get up from his car and just slap Amwa. So you know Amwa is also a man, so he just replied the slap. So the guy, I just saw the guy just taking a gun from his car, just shot Amwa 3 times, just seriously. So I called someone for some help, so we just take him to a car and just take him to a hospital.
So what did Amwa say to him that made him shoot him?
No, you know, it was just an argument between him and Amwa that he should drive well, because the way the guy was driving, it wasn't good at all. The way the guy was driving, it wasn't good at all. So it was. I think there's something happened, but that time I was just standing at Amwa's back. So I just saw the guy slapping Amwa. So Amwa just replied the slap to the guy.
And he went back into the car and picked a gun?
Yeah, he was standing with his car in front of the gate. So he just took up the gun and just shot him.
How many times?
3 times.
Wow. And what happened after?
So I just stopped a car just there. So I just tell them to cross the road, the driver to cross the road, else the guy will just run away. So I take a car and put Amwa inside to take him to the hospital.
We are learning the guy also shot himself. What happened?
Yeah, the police just came around, so they surrounded him and show a gun to him and says he should come out from the car. So I think the guy saw, I think he was afraid, so he just took out his gun and shot himself.
Any police one by you know, yeah, just an person head bay, or Johnny, Harry Scaran pursue Johnny. And your fan man, no, I block it, try for an abroke. Saturn no body Timutu and Anamon, Saturn no Yamon Timutu. And there's our person, Jano, a quiet campus, no, Yabrake, dear feeling sight, and Menabu, do by Edda by Yabrake, and one almost satisfies me at the Beaumont to Moba. In the affairs, I'm not the Canababe or the Canababe Shannon. I want me at the bay, uncle, and yeah, police one by, you know, and I just say, you know, so on the bay. I wouldn't Timutu or down. There is me who.
And those are some eyewitnesses who saw what happened, sharing what they say they saw with our correspondent there. We'll be keeping our eyes on that story. Like we heard, the two are in critical condition and are receiving treatment at the Akonnor Teaching Hospital. Now, away from that, some residents in the northern region capital, Tamale, are calling for increased visibility of security personnel in Tamale and its environs to protect lives and property. The residents say they have either been victims or seen a wide range of violent crimes, including armed robbery and assault. They also lament arms are in wrong hands and those people tend to use them at the least provocation. As we draw closer to the election, JoyNews puts the spotlight on security within communities across the country and seek answers from those in authority. We begin today from the northern region, where Martina Bugri reports.
The northern region has had its fair share of robberies and violent crimes this year. Areas noted for these crimes include Vitin, Kakpa-Yelifuo, communities around the School of Hygiene and circulated areas in the metropolis and its environs. Famous among these crimes were the Vitin mobile money robbery, the Kakpa-Yeli fuel station robbery, where one person was killed, the robbery of a Forest Bureau operator, and the near rape of an 18-year-old girl whose rescuer was killed.
We used to hardly record what we call armed robbery or serious theft cases, but of late you even find it very difficult to ride your motor from 9 p.m. and onwards. So these days, if at least the authorities will be able to help curb it, put what we call the Operation Calm Life, so that we will put in a lot of checkpoints on our roads, it will be able to help us.
There was a tax in Tamale here, especially the filling station, mobile money vendors. Initially, when the issue started, they attacked one filling station around Kakpa-Yeli near the chief palace, and they killed the watchman and took everything from them. The state institutions, they intend to arrange some items like security barriers and the rest in town. So all they said, within some short period, they stopped. Understand? After that, they begin to do the issue arise again. They start attacking mobile money vendors.
We have to let them to be very alert. You know, Northern Virginia, we don't feel safe at all.
With less than a month to go to the polls, the residents are worried with the already volatile situation, and arms in wrong hands, the region may not be able to handle additional political violence. They are therefore calling for increased security in the area.
We are not at ease because of what is happening currently. Young guys killing people, taking their motorbikes, breaking into people's rooms. When it comes to political tensions too, the kind of pronouncements people make at times it scares us. The security, the police, the fire, all the security agencies, they should come together to collaborate.
For the gun aspect, nowadays it's all about if you have money, if you come, they will sell for you without registration, without registering it.
Right now, we don't feel safe, and we are heading towards election. There was patrol team in town, but what they always do is that the patrol team do only patrol in Tamale Central, around this area. They don't go to the outskirts like Kakpa-Yeli, Sanargu, Kupo, Wodke, and the rest.
The residents say they are afraid to stay out late beyond 10 p.m.
Martina Bugui filed that report for us. Well, there are 4 constituencies in this particular region. Sagnarugu is one of them, and Member of Parliament Abie Fuseni has been responding to the concerns raised by the residents. He spoke to Benny Sabubedu Lansa on News Desk.
When we have mounted some security checks with participation of the citizenry to deal with some of those issues. Not too long ago, for instance, in Sagnarugu, it had to take the collective effort of people in the community to apprehend a group of criminals who even murdered somebody and took his motorbike, and for those groups to be unmasked, and with the participation of the citizens of the area, they were accordingly handed over to the police. As we speak now, we are even waiting for decisive action against those hoodlums. But it goes without saying that security is a collective issue. All right. For which all of us have plans to participate. We are going to help the security as well. And so I, as member of Parliament, I've had occasion to even make a representation to the district security to endeavor to expand their operations to cover the outlying areas where, because of the intensity of security at the center, they have moved to the outlying area.
All right. So Mr. Fuseni, can you hear me, please?
Abie Fuseni there, you heard him talking to Benny Sabubedu Lansa, and we're focusing a lot more on those stories here on the Joy News channel. Talking about security, the Ghana Armed Forces has today launched a simulation exercise codenamed Exercise Eastern Shield to prepare security forces for next month's crucial elections. The exercise is in partnership with the police service, the fire service, as well as other allied security agencies. General Officer Commanding of the Southern Command of the Ghana Armed Forces, Brigadier General Yeboah Nsia, launched the exercise at the command headquarters in Teshi this morning. JoyNews' reporter Kweku Asante is joining me with more. Hello, Kweku. Tell us what exactly, or how exactly this operation is supposed to run.
Hello, can you please come again? The question is not okay. I can't hear you.
Okay, I'm hoping you can hear me now. What more did the officers tell you about the shape of this particular exercise?
Well, so the Brigadier General of the Southern Command, the commander, has been explaining that the Ghana Army, as well as the Ghana Police Service, the Ghana Fire Service, and other allied security agencies are trying to bring themselves together to be able to deal with election-related violence that sometimes characterize elections, as we've seen in previous years. And so they want to do a simulation exercise in parts of the country to assess the preparedness of these security agencies to be able to respond to such issues as and when they come up in the lead up to the election. So the Brigadier General, the commanding officer of the Southern Command here in Accra, is saying they are putting together these teams who are going to hold a simulation ahead of this election to be able to assess themselves and their preparedness.
So, Kweku, give us a mental picture of this simulation exercise. Exactly what did they do today? Because if it's a simulation exercise, it is something they are looking to replicate on the day of election, perhaps. Give us an idea what you saw today.
So today was the launch of the simulation exercise. They've not actually started. But today you could see the military men, the Ghana Police Service, the Fire Service, and all other allied security agencies who were there today with their arms and other accoutrements that they have as they prepare ahead for the election. So they've been having some of these things, they've been using it, they've been displaying it to the public, as in trying to reinforce into the minds of the ordinary Ghanaians that they are very ready to prepare and give them the best of security ahead of the election. Of course, the Brigadier General made a point that this is a security issue. They're going to do a simulation. They don't want to put entirely what exactly they are going to be doing outside in the public domain. But then they're going to hold some of these simulations in parts of Accra before the election, and then it will impact how they are prepared ahead of the election.
Well, Kweku, thank you very much. We'll see what happens going forward. And that is Kweku Asante there reporting from the Ghana Armed Forces headquarters today, where they launched the Operation Eastern Shield, essentially preparing towards the elections. Now, former Special Prosecutor Martin Ayew has accused President Akufo-Addo of interference and attempts to make him what he calls a poodle. Martin Ayew resigned yesterday after 3 years in office. In a resignation letter, Mr. Ayew said he does not feel that President Akufo-Addo has done enough to safeguard the independence of his office. Here are portions of Martin Ayew's letter. So let me take you through parts of those that letter. This one says, one cannot seriously continue to prevent and fight corruption by depending on seconded staff of a 2-year duration renewable to another year in brackets. And he says who are looking forward to and or over their shoulders to returning to their main employers, who consequently may have more influence over them than the special prosecutor under whom they are supposed to work, essentially raising issues about the people that he was supposed to work with and the fact that they were not permanent employees of his office. They were actually people who were seconded to him from different offices, and those people he believed had allegiance to the people or the offices from which they were sent to his office. So that's one of the points that he raises there. Now, that's Martin Ayew's letter, portions of Martin Ayew's letter being read to you, the letter that he actually sent to the president. In this one, he says, Your Excellency was acting as a judge in your own cause, usurping my functions to take any independent follow-up action on the anti-corruption assessment report. And in this particular paragraph, he's referring to the Ejapa deal, upon which he did a corruption risk assessment. He makes the point here that the presidency had tried to stop him from independently carrying out his work. Now, in this part, he says, we now fundamentally disagree on non-partisan professional approach to the prevention of corruption and fighting corruption to make it a high-risk enterprise for public officers. And essentially what Mr. Ayew is doing here is to build the premise upon which he says he is resigning. He says here, I am prepared to meet the threats of my demise as the price to pay for serving my country without fear or favor. So those are excerpts of Mr. Martin Amidou's letter, which he sent to President Akufo-Addo, essentially announcing his resignation. We have a lot of those going around on our social media handles. If you want to take a look at what Mr. Ayew wrote to the president, those are all there for you. Now, I'm going to take you back to February 23, 2018, when President Akufo-Addo swore in Martin Ayew. He promised to give him the independence that he needed to work back then. Take a look.
The Ghanaian people expect the office of the special prosecutor to rise to the challenge and to the occasion, and collaborate with other existing law enforcement agencies to fight relentlessly. We expect the special prosecutor to discharge his duties vigorously, with courage, without fear or favor, ill will or malice, in accordance with the rule of law. The establishment of this office is for a high purpose and must not under any circumstances be used as an avenue for persecution or vengeance. The office will be required to do justice to all manner of persons. The overwhelming popular acceptance by the good people of Ghana and the strong consensus approval by Parliament of Mr. AMIDU'S nomination justify the confidence I repose in him. Indeed, his eloquence and grasp of issues displayed to the public during his recent vetting is further testimony of the soundness of his appointment. I want to assure him that not only will the executive, including the Attorney General, respect scrupulously the independence of his office, but will also provide him with whatever assistance is required to enable him to discharge his high duties effectively in the interest of the Ghanaian people. The recent publication of Ghana's score in the 2017 Corruption Perception Index, organized by Transparency International, showing a further drop in our standing, a result largely based on, quote, the plethora of corruption allegations, exposés before the onset of this administration, indicates the enormity of the task ahead.
As President Akufo-Addo there when he swore Martin Ayew into office. Now, I remember that day very well. We all met it with excitement. Here is what Mr. Ayew said in response to what President Akufo-Addo said.
I would not have accepted to come to this job if I did not trust Your Excellency's integrity and honor. I have also given Mr. President my word of honor that I will discharge the duties of the burdensome office you have entrusted to my care with similar integrity and honor, with your support and assistance. Mr. President, I wish to assure you that the propaganda about witch hunting will not daunt me from prosecuting all corruption crimes without reference to political considerations. As you had yourself admonished, once a suspected offender is established by investigation to have committed offenses prosecutable in the national interest, I will treat crime as crime and nothing else. I thank you, Mr. President, and the Honorable Attorney General sincerely for the trust you both have put in me and in my capabilities. Above all, I wish to thank and assure Ghanaians that I will do my best to vindicate the trust that the whole nation put in me at my nomination and nomination approval hearing. I wish the public to know that nobody has served me personally with any writ or statement of case or injunction challenging my nomination, approval, and appointment so as to restrain me from accepting this appointment. Before concluding, Mr. President, I wish to use your presence to acknowledge a senior citizen from Accra without whom I might not have been available for this job. Professor J.N.D. Dodu was my former hall tutor at Commonwealth Hall and was formerly of the Department of Modern Languages, Lagos. He ensured that I was not cheated out by the exclusion of my name from the LLB class list at the Faculty of Law after my first university exams, when I had qualified for placement on the program by merit. His actions almost 43 years ago contributed in no small measure to my passion for the defense of truth, fairness, integrity, transparency, and merit in public life, and must be publicly acknowledged for once. The General Legal Counsel may have a lot to learn from him at this time of the problems at the Ghana School of Law.
And that's Martin Ayew when he accepted the offer to become the special prosecutor. Well, his resignation has been tendered in now, and it's been about, well, we're heading towards the 24 hours now. We have yet to hear any response from the presidency as yet. But our presidential affairs correspondent is ELTON BROBBEY. He's joining us to tell us what he has heard or picked up on the corridors of power since Mr. Ayew tendered in his resignation. ELTON, have you gathered anything as yet?
Well, nothing official from the Office of the President on the resignation by Mr. Martin Ayew, the Special Prosecutor. There's nothing official as of now. However, what we picked is that there's currently ongoing a meeting of the board of the Office of the Special Prosecutor. That meeting is underway, and the outcome probably will feed into what government will communicate to the populace, hopefully in the hours to follow. The meeting, among other things, I'm told, will look at getting somebody, preferably the deputy special prosecutor, to act as special prosecutor until a substantive one is appointed. As to whether President Akufo-Addo will accept or reject the resignation letter submitted by Mr. Martin Ayew, that is what all of us are waiting to hear. However, I've been noticing around close to 24 hours after the resignation letter came in, we are now coming up on documents that captures a series of correspondence between the Office of the Special Prosecutor and the Chief of Staff, as well as the Chief Director here at the Jubilee House. Even one of such correspondence that I've stumbled upon is a letter that was written by Mr. Martin Ayew, in which he laments about the lack of office accommodation for use by the Office of the Special Prosecutor. And let me just capture a part of it, where he reminds the Chief of Staff that I remind you that there's been several correspondence with the Office of the Chief of Staff and the Office on how to proceed to ensure the proper conversion, equipping, and furnishing of the off-premises into a suitable office accommodation for occupation to enable the requisite staff to be employed to operationalize the office as envisaged under Act 599. I never heard from you on this. Then he goes on to say that you also recall that in about March or April 2019, you personally brought a bunch of keys to hand over to me, allegedly for the same building. We are talking about a 9-story building that was originally occupied by the KED Fund, but was given to the Office of the Special Prosecutor by government. And Martin Ayew says that I was at pains to explain to you how it was procedurally and technically not feasible for me to just accept keys to a building without any due processes and having taken place. You came again the next day with the Deputy Chief of Staff, and I carefully explained to both of you the state of the building and requested you to visit the place and to take an inventory of the suitability of the office structure. And he goes on to explain why he rejected a bunch of keys. Now, a response from the Chief of Staff office to Martin Ayew says that, as indicated in your letter, the office has far advanced in the process of seeking approval of the PPA to enable it begin the process to award the sole source contract for the conversion of the whole premises into a suitable office accommodation and division. You may have impeded access to prepare it for use. I am handing over the keys to the main entrance of your office building. He says that he finds it surprising that the keys were rejected and that the action was taken without any ill motive. So it's a long correspondence that we stumbled upon there. There's even a part where it talks about salaries for the office of the special prosecutor
and Elton, if I may just jump in there, Ms. Ayew is noted for writing very lengthy and very comprehensive letters, as you have indicated, even in this particular correspondence. Regarding the salary, what does he say? Because in his letter of resignation, he seemed to suggest that he has not been paid, neither has his deputy.
Well, as far as from the correspondence and the memos we have seen, and as to whether this has been carried through, it makes reference to the payment of salary of the office of the special prosecutor from the office of the president. The issues about the monument may be different from salary, and for that must be worked upon by other parties. But as far as monthly remuneration is concerned, from the letters we have seen, he, Mr. Martin Ayew, and the deputy were fully paid from the office of the president. But the issue of emoluments are still a matter that are, even as we speak, is still a pending discussion between various parties to look at an agreed monument that may also take into consideration the end of service for the special prosecutor and the deputies as well. But as far as salary is concerned, from what we've seen, it was given a monthly salary from the office of the president.
Very well. Before you go, Elton, how soon are we expected to hear from the presidency? You've indicated that there isn't any formal communication at this point, but are we to expect that communication anytime soon?
It is very unclear for now, Gifty, as we speak. I can't put a timeline as to when we'll get a formal response from government. I know that there's been a series of meetings, even from yesterday running into the night when the letter of resignation came through. The latest we have, probably that may be stalling the statement from government, is what I can only assume to be the ongoing board of directors meeting of the office of the special prosecutor to look at the resignation and probably inform government officials that government will take a decision on the way forward. Okay.
Elton, thank you very much for that information. Elton BROBBEY is our presidential affairs correspondent, bringing us up to speed on what information he's picked up from the corridors of power. We're still keeping our eyes open for that response. In the meantime, lawyer and former member of parliament for Zebila, Mr. John Ndebugri, has described the resignation of Mr. Ayew as one which was expected. Mr. Ndebugri was one of the very first individuals to predict that Mr. Amidou's resignation will happen soon after his appointment. He explaining his rationale behind that prediction. Mr. Ndebugri said the Special Prosecutor's Office was just like any other company in which the CEO reports to the board, a circumstance he believes does not insulate the Special Prosecutor against any form of interference. He spoke on PM Express last night.
The law specifically says that the Special Prosecutor will prosecute cases subject to the mandate of the Attorney General. It is in the law. Secondly, the architecture I talked about, if you look at the law closely, you realize that it is like establishing a company. The Office of Special Prosecutor was established like a company. And the Special Prosecutor was merely the managing director of the company with a board and its chairman and membership, which the Special Prosecutor could not, ignore, because it's not about putting one line that the Special Prosecutor in the performance of his function shall be independent. That doesn't solve the problem. You establish a thing like some company with a board, board chairman, board members, and so on, and simply made the Special Prosecutor the chief executive officer of the company. The chief executive officer cannot override the decisions of the board.
That's Mr. Ndebugri's thoughts there. He also expressed concern about the security for Mr. Martin Ayew, given the damning revelations that he made in his resignation letter, and calls for all to be equally worried for the former special prosecutor.
He says the events of 12 November 2020 have removed the only protection he had in connection with this matter, and therefore he has no choice but to resign immediately. It means that it is Jerry Rawlings who was protecting him in the performance of, in the thing, and we know that Jerry Rawlings had good relations with the president and the government and so on. So let us think about that. My concern now is to ensure the security of Martin AMIDU, because the revelations he has made are very grave. The president himself has called him and tried to instruct him to use him as a kudu to cover up deeds that are taking place in his table. And I think we should be talking about that. Not these theoretical things about, the law has provided that he is independent. If the law says you are independent, and in actual fact on the ground you are not independent, does Martin have an army? Does he have a police force? Was he not to depend on the instruments of state? So please.
Mr. Ndebugui there raising concerns about Mr. AMIDU'S security. We still have more coming up here on Joy News today when we return from this break, including what's happening at the Accra International Conference Center, where a book of condolence has been opened for the former President JERRY JOHN RAWLINGS. Coming up in business, AFCFTA Secretariat promises to support underdeveloped countries to meet criteria for Trade Pact, which kicks off in January next year. Daryl Crow is standing by with those details. I'm still Gifty Andopia. We'll return with more. Do stay with us.
Good afternoon. My name is Daryl Crow. Time for some business news. African countries that may not have what it takes to begin trading under the Continental Free Trade Agreement in January 2021 will receive some support from the Secretariat. This is to ensure that no country is left behind in the world's largest trade deal after the creation of the World Trade Organization. Here's more as the African Council of Ministers commenced a week's preparatory meeting on the implementation of the agreement in Accra.
Series of meetings to prepare for commencement of trade is in line with the objectives of ensuring that all member countries put in place the necessary mechanisms to be able to trade from January 2021. Head of the AFCFTA affairs at the Ghana Revenue Authority, who is also chairing the Committee on Trading Goods and the Subcommittee on Trade Facilitation and Customs Operation, Feshin Akoto, told Joy Business that countries that will be ready by the January 2021 deadline will be given the necessary support.
When you look at the main framework agreement, there is a provision that we should have in mind that we are all not of the same level in development. Some of the countries are more developed than the others. So in dealing with such countries, we should be very considerate, looking at their level of development. So if any country is not ready, it is right for those developed ones to help them come out with the measures, help them put in place measures that will help them to implement the after. So once they come out with their difficulty, that's why we have a secretariat. The secretariats will take all the will put in the possible measures to make sure that they have the basic things in place for trading to take place.
On the part of Ghana, Chief Director of the Ministry of Trade and Industry, Patrick NIMO, told the delegate that regulatory bodies in the country have been given the necessary tools and are ready to play their role when implementation begins. He said Ghana is ready and prepared to begin trading under the Continental Free Trade Agreement,
which is supported by a steering committee and the technical working groups. We've also set up a national coordinating office to provide a one-stop facilitation location for the private sector to go to for information and assistance. Regulatory authorities are ready and feverishly preparing for processes for exports, imports, and transit trade. Economic operators are keen to take advantage of this opportunity. And when you engage with them, they are keen about the details.
The meeting is expected to conclude with a resolution on some pertinent trade barrier concerns among member nations.
Now, the German Development Agency, GIZ, has signed a development partnership agreement with the National Board for Small-Scale Industries to support the digitalization of small and medium-scale businesses in the country. The project, which is expected to benefit more than 12,000 people, involves the disbursement of some 1.5 million euros to SMEs. Executive Director of the board, Andre Ayew, was confident that this will be a game-changer for the sector. Here's more in this report.
The grant agreement, known as the COVID-19 SME Innovation and Digitization Support Scheme, is expected to provide Ghanaian SMEs with digital solutions as a strategy to adapt to emerging market demands brought by the COVID-19 pandemic. A third partner, the Digital Transformation Center, also implemented by GIZ Ghana, will be responsible for supporting this project with technical expertise. Executive Director of NBSSI, Kosiyanki, in an interview after signing the agreement, explains how it will benefit more than 500 micro and small businesses.
It's a 1.5 million euro, which is 10 million Ghana cedis approximately. Our goal is to bring on board partners who would go into about 500 MSMEs and provide them with the tools and the needs that they have under digitalization. If it's a website, if it's an e-commerce portal, if it's even access to payment systems, if it's access to opportunities to sell their products at a time like this. Because if you're aware, when COVID-19 really happened, it impacted the way we do business, it impacted how we receive funding. So to be able to strengthen the businesses, our partnership with GIZ focuses on really building the strength of these businesses so that we can grow them at a time such as this.
Head of the Network for Inclusive Economic Development Cluster at the GIZ Ghana, Gerard Guskowski, told Joy Business that the initiative will help micro businesses avoid more negative impact from the COVID-19 pandemic.
The National Board of Small-Scale Industries, and therefore we knew that that could be an interesting partner for something like that. And then, of course, also the responsibility given to the NBSSI with respect to COVID-19 by the government of Ghana. So this was an ideal partner. So together we were thinking of how to design such a program that's keeping businesses alive in these difficult times. And therefore, for us, one of the key items is digitalization. And we know that Ghana is relatively advanced in digitalization, but of course you have huge gaps in the society, talking from rural to urban, for example, but also from business to businesses, business depending on the environment they are operating in.
The signing of this agreement marks a critical turning point for SMEs in Ghana that have been affected by the outbreak of the coronavirus.
And we've got a full bulletin of business news at the top of the hour. Don't miss it. Oreo Kwampofu is up next in sports. Stay tuned.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to the sports segment. And in just about 15 minutes time, the Black Stars can secure qualification to the 2021 Africa Cup of Nations, which would be hosted in Cameroon. In their way is Sudan, and coach of the Black Stars, CK Akonnor, has been speaking to the communications team of the Ghana Football Association ahead of this grand tie, as he says that he still remains optimistic ahead of this difficult fixture.
The Black Stars are in Sudan for the second leg of the 2021 AFCON qualifier, having won the reverse fixture at the Cape Coast Sports Stadium 2-0, courtesy of goals from skipper Andre Ayew. The senior national team will be without the influential leader for the second leg. Despite his absence, CK Akonnor is optimistic of securing victory.
We are very positive. Whatever it is, we're prepared and we'll be ready for tomorrow. The likes of Wakaso, Ofori has always been positive within the team in terms of team spirit, how to move the boys to follow the rhythm and everything. I think it's been positive, and we're hoping that they can transform that into the game. First of all, he's the leader of the team, and so if you don't have the leader, it's always a problem. But Having said that, these are professional guys, those who they've been in Europe for quite some time now. They are doing well, not just in Europe, so they know what to do. And of course, a bit of guidance from us, our technical team, I think they will be able to do. He's not in, and so it won't be necessary for us to talk about it. Yes, we've lost him. He delivered. He gave us the 2 goals the other day, and now he's no more there. And so we have to deal with it. And strategically, we are trying to find a way, or we will find a way as to how we will play and get success.
Deputy skipper Richard Ofori is also suspended for the game. His absence brings the list of highly influential players in the Black Stars setup to 5. Despite this, CK Akonnor insists when the team does the right things, they've got a chance of winning the game.
Well, we need the balance of attacking, and of course, at the same time, we will defend. In our first game, we found ourselves struggling when we lose possession, and that is what we've worked on since the last match. And so we're looking forward to improve in that area, because we give the opponent a bit of counter-attack situations, and of course we expect them to come with 2 strikers. They are playing home, they need to win, and so we need to be better in that area. And I think once we are good in that area, we'll find a good situation.
A win for Ghana in tonight's game will see the Black Stars qualify to the 2021 African Cup of Nations, which has been rescheduled to take place in 2022 in Cameroon.
Well, for Andre Ayew, he scored 20 goals in 91 appearances for the Black Stars, and certainly he would be a big miss there. But stepping into his shoes would be his younger brother, Jordan Ayew, who would captain the Black Stars in the next 10 minutes or so when they face Sudan in that fixture, which could possibly qualify Ghana to the 2021 Africa Cup of Nations. But let's come back to Ghana, where chairman of the League Clubs Association, Akufo-Addo, wants clubs to be more transparent with the government if they support football clubs that participate in Africa. He was speaking on the Joy Sports Link with my colleague Nathaniel Atto.
Now we can go to the market and even fight for a player that is costing $150,000 on the open market. Buy them, bring them here. So it's so refreshing that we're getting this from the president. But there's this caveat, and I don't know whether it's going to apply to this dispensation coming from His Excellency the President. In the past, they will tell you to get to the group stage, but that is where the key point is, how do you make it to the
group stage? Exactly.
So if it is coming from the beginning, as they move into the competition, I'm sure it will help. So it's good news for us, and we'll say kudos to His Excellency the President. Now that he's spoken, we will have to toe that line. But I will also want my members accountability, openness, because the ministry at a point in time put up a fund that clubs who are playing Africa should assess.
Well, that's how we'll be wrapping up the sports here. But remember, the Black Stars play against Sudan in the next 10 minutes. And you can get updates of that game live on my Joy Online /sports, or you can follow us on social media at Joy Sports GH. But we'll be back here at 4:30 p.m. to do an analysis and a review of the match between the Black Stars and Sudan. My name is Oreko Ampofo, and that's the sports for now.
Now, before we bring you world news, let's take you to the Accra International Conference Center, where many more dignitaries have been signing the Book of Condolence, opened in memory of the late former President, Flight Lieutenant JERRY JOHN RAWLINGS. JoyNews' Maxwell Agbagba is joining me with more. Maxwell, run us through some of the personalities who have been signing the book today.
Well, we've had quite a number of them. We've had the spokesperson for the National Chief Imam Sheikh Aremea Oshaibu coming here to sign the Book of Condolence. We've been speaking to him, and he says that former President JJ Rawlings actually helped in making Eid al-Fitr and then Eid al-Adha, which is two some of the biggest festivals that we have on the Islamic calendar, he helped in making them, holidays. He says he facilitated the Gazette and made it possible for those days, to be made holidays. He says that he has also contributed towards an interfaith cooperation such that for every state event, you are likely to have, the 3 main religious groups offering prayers before they commence. He says by so doing, he united people of different, religious backgrounds. He has also been talking about his contributions towards the education sector. He says that J.J. Rawlings actually helped in promoting education because in 1987, he established the Islamic Education Unit, which was part of the Ghana Education Service. And that actually helped to develop the education sector in most Islamic, communities. We've also had the presiding bishop for the Perez Chapel, Charles Ajanasari. He was here just some hours ago, and he was talking about the values that J.J. Rawlings stood for: probity, accountability, and transparency. And he says that we should emulate those values. We should try to be like J.J. Rawlings because of what he stood for. And if you're able to emulate those things, he believes that our society will be better. We had the senior minister, Osafo Mafos, coming here to sign the book of condolence. We've also had Dr. Rashid Pelpu. I've also been speaking to the presiding bishop of the Methodist Church. We've also had quite a number of ambassadors and members of the diplomatic corps also arriving here to sign the book of condolence.
That's Maxwell there trying to show us what he has in his background. He's coming to us live from the Accra International Conference Center. The Book of Condolence has been opened there. We'll do World News next.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Showbiz here on Joy News. Now, Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah has revealed his involvement in politics was purely accidental. Speaking on E-Vibes, the politician said his plan was to focus on his business, but God had other plans.
I always mention that politics was purely by accident. So when I left radio and then I was in law school, the Member of Parliament here, David Oponkusi, had completed his 12-year tenure and was exiting, and we're looking for a new candidate. So it's right around these same areas where we are talking to executives that, listen, look for somebody who's young and has energy and can do X, Y, Z. And so when I left and I went to Accra, there he is, Rabbi. That's him. He's our organizer. There he is. He's one of the conspirators. And then 2 others, Alhaji Awal, he's not here, and then Mr. Asamoah. They came back to me in Accra and said, we've been thinking about it and we think you should be our candidate.
And how did you take it?
Well, initially I was like, that's not my path. That's not what I want to do. I want to practice my law, build my business and move on. But they're very persuasive. And after speaking to my wife, to the family, to a few of my spiritual advisors, we decided it's not a bad idea, let's do this. And I'm coming to the end of a first term. You see my branded cards.
Yes.
We're just starting a campaign, hopefully for a second term.
Something that started off as a mistake. Now, would you say that it's a blessing to you?
It's a blessed mistake.
I love that. Blessed mistake.
Blessed.